Hi, and welcome to my third video podcast. This time I'm going to talk about the 2009 Chinese epic, The Founding of a Republic, made to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the founding of the Chinese Communist Party. So yes, it is a propaganda puff piece, but I thought as a history buff it might have some interest for me, talking about the Chinese Civil War, which started back 1927, finished 1949, 1950, and ended up with basically the rulership of Chairman Mao. Sadly, what we have is an incredibly boring film that fails to satisfy on any level. Now, I could go on about how historically unsound it was. History is not a terribly insightful thing for me to say, but it's usually written by the victors, so I'll have to accept the fact that it's awfully one-sided and makes the KMT, the Nationalist Party, and its ruler to be at best corrupt and toothless, and at worst bloodthirsty, and that the Communist Party were full of lovely people who only had their thoughts of the people in mind. And there is an argument to say maybe at some core ideological level that was the case, but it's not the reality. But sadly, what we get here is a portrayal of Mao as a lovely uncle type who frolics in the fields with children and takes care of his cook and only really is interested in ideology and in smoking and in eating and sleeping under great big bombings. The film itself is just dull. It's talking heads in rooms, talking about events which we never see, talking about allegiances which never really quite make sense. Now, it's a struggle for me because I don't know how 90% of the characters are in this film, in historical terms, but I thought, it could be kind of interesting. But no, it's dull, it's boring, it's like one of those American clip shows where they've got to make an extra episode or two for the season. So what they do, they put a bunch of funny clips in from the previous seasons, but they have no context, they have no linkage. So it's just a bunch of people talking, and then move to another bunch of people talking, move to another bunch of people talking, and sometimes we might recognise them, but it gives us very little historical context, except sometimes stuff's written on the screen. Now sadly, the subtitles I had only subtitled for 30% of what was going on in the characters' names and things like that. But I got an idea of time passing and things changing, allegiances moving on. But it didn't really make an awful lot of sense at all. And for a film about a physical struggle, it shows very little action and impact outside of the walls of power. So I have no idea how this war affected the real people. There's a small section about the collapse of the economy in Shanghai, but I never really saw that people were being affected by it. I saw that a triad boss was a bit upset by it, but little more than that. I never really saw the horrors and the deaths that went on. There's one bombing raid by the KMT on Mao, which was a failure. I understand why they put it in, but it didn't really show, other than a couple of minor soldiers, in fact one of them was a cook, getting killed. Thousands and thousands and millions of people probably died during this struggle, and I never got a sense of that human loss. I just got a sense of a bunch of political figures sitting in rooms, smoking and drinking, talking about what was going on. There is something worthwhile in the film, and that's a game of I Spy, because the film is populated by cameo performances by famous Chinese actors and actresses, and even the non-super into Asian film person can probably spot a few. Jet Li appears early on and looks incredibly uncomfortable. We get Jackie Chan in there, we get Vicky Zhao in there a bit later on, and Andy Lau makes a small appearance at the end. But if all I'm doing is picking up on that, it shows you that the film itself is absolutely struggling, because I have very little idea. I have no more historical knowledge than I did when I went into it. So what we have here is a film that fails as a film because it's uninteresting and doesn't make any sense and doesn't give you a historical timeline, and it also fails as a piece of propaganda because it's so blatantly one-sided. I don't think anybody's going to be fooled by it. And it also fails as a historical document because it is so blatantly one-sided. And even though it's probably a bit softer on people in the KMT than previous visions may have been, it just doesn't tickle any part of me, and doesn't interest any part of me. So I'm afraid what we have here is a film which is not only not recommended, but it's a complete fail. And actually, if I was Chinese, I might even be quite offended by it. So there we go. Third video review over. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.